Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our unit on personal banking and transactions. This is part of my 8th grade business leadership course. And if you're in class with me, then I might supplement some of the information in here with some additional ideas and additional perspectives. If not, well, that's all right. You'll just miss out on that part and just have to rely on the video here. Now, the idea of this video pretty much hinges on the concept that, hey, we're in the 8th grade. At least you guys are in the 8th grade, right? If you're in this course, watching the video, whatever, okay? So, you're in the 8th grade. That means you are not too far away from having your first jobs, your first part-time jobs. In fact, I would wager that some of y'all are already earning money, maybe on the side as cash, or what they call under the table. People would just pay you a little bit of money off the side. You're not an official employee, and there you go. Okay, not documented, what have you, and that's a good thing. Now, many employers will start hiring, depending on the job, as early as 15, 16, 17, and of course 18. So just you have to look up local laws and rules and such for that. But usually for 15-year-olds, it's going to be at grocery stores, working as bag people or what have you, helping people out to the vehicles with groceries, not even collecting carts. 16, you're looking at fast food restaurants and fast food chains, and some waitress and hosting duties. And then when you hit the 18 mark, that really opens your gamut of what you can do and who you can work for. So we're not too far away from holding our first jobs. So when you start figuring out, hey, what am I going to do once I start earning the money? Am I just going to have a big envelope in my bedroom and put it up underneath my mattress? Whoopsie. Put it up underneath my mattress, right? Well, that may not be the best option. Well, Mr. C, I got a safe I could put my money into. Again, that may not be the best interest, or in your best interest. Mr. C, what if it's a fireproof safe? Again, that may not be in your best interest. We're going to look at that and look at your options, okay? So let's go ahead and get this party started. The big ideas. How do some businesses and individuals conduct transactions and track their spending? Transactions, in other words, when they agree to do something, right, when they're doing the exchange for something of value, how is that money handed over, right? How do they transact that, well, transaction, right? How do they make it happen, right? What occurs, right? Are they paying cash? Are they paying with a card? Okay, where does that money come from? What is owed for that money? So on and so forth. We're going to look at that, all right? What are the current or usual expectations for opening accounts and conducting transactions at your neighborhood bank? Now, it's not going to be an in-depth look, okay, but it will be pretty deep, okay, for basically scratching the surface, okay, but we're not going to look at the complete ins and outs, all right? And why and how should you track your daily credits and debits? Credits? Debits? Mr. C, we're not getting credit cards yet. That's not what I mean by credits and debits. Those are accounting words, okay? Credit is an accounting word. Debit is an accounting word. And we're going to look at what those mean in more details here shortly. All right? All right, as far as essential questions, these all tie in with state standards. So dealing with state standard 4.0, how can proper management of transactions and familiarity with banking help a business leader? Well, yeah, okay, that's a big one, all right? Because if the business leader or the person is not conducting their transactions or tracking their transactions or managing their money well, all right, when it comes time for payday, you don't want to tell your employees, sorry guys, I got no paychecks for y'all, or I could only pay half of y'all, because you know what's going to happen? You're going to lose half your people, okay, if not all of them, all right? What might be important to know about personal banking and transactions to help promote positive business relationships and help manage conflicts? That goes without saying, okay? You don't want bill collectors calling your employees about you, okay? You don't want to be that person who's taking a collection call at the place of employment, okay? You don't want that to happen, all right? So with that in mind, you got to promote positive business relationships. In other words, if you say that you're going to pay somebody, okay, make sure that money's available to pay them, all right? What tools are available to help track transactions and assist with making sure accounts are properly balanced? We're going to look at that in a sense, all right? There are a lot of tools available, especially with the digital world today, but we're going to look at some ways that, some basic ways to help you balance those budgets or help balance those transactions and balance your books, all right? So first thing we got to get into is, yes, vocabulary. Yes, everybody likes that V word, vocabulary. We got to have these new words and define them within our middle school definitions, yes. All right, so yeah, here we go. Basic terms, basic ideas, and basic concepts. Interest yield. All right, so what is interest? Interest is the amount that you pay or are paid on a regular rate. Okay, that's interest. Now, does that mean it's going to be yearly rate? Well, it might be if it's an annual percentage, right? It might be quarterly. It might be a daily. So interest is basically money that you pay or are paid for a set period of time, all right, for, either borrowing money or utilization of money. Okay, pretty simple. Okay, all right, so interest yield, okay, here's the thing. Yield is the amount paid to an account holder for a set period of time. Okay, so yield means they pay you. If you open a savings account, you're going to get a yield. If you open an interest-bearing account, you're going to get the yield. Okay, in other words, yield is what you, as the person who was opening the account, are paid. Okay, pretty simple there. Frequently, they are based off of federal rates, right? And you will often hear the term APY, which stands for annual percentage yield, all right? That means they're going to pay you a percentage. So if you borrow $100, right? Or I'm sorry, if you put in $100, okay? If you put in $100 and they pay a 1% APY or annual percentage yield, that means over the course of 1 year, you'll earn $1 back for every $100, okay? All right, so it may be divided by 12 months, it may be paid monthly. Each account is different. I have a savings account with a certain company, and they pay monthly, and that's really nice. Are they paying 1%? No, they're paying a little bit higher. But usually savings accounts don't pay very high, and we're going to talk about that, all right? All righty, so annual percentage yield may be divided by 12 or paid monthly and paid monthly, all right? Now, rate is what you pay if you borrow money for a set period of time, all right? This is called a percentage rate, all right? So when you get like a credit card and you're borrowing money from a bank, okay, for an item, okay, you have to pay that back. And what you pay back is interest, and that is called an APR, usually. APR, annual percentage rate, annual, yearly percentage, the percent you have to pay, rate, you have to pay it, okay? So rates you have to pay, yields you earn, okay? Make that clear. Rates you have to pay, yields come to you, okay? Just like the APY may be divided by 12 and paid monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly, again, that's all dependent on the institution itself. Now, if you ever get a loan, right? A loan says I am contractually obligating myself to pay back something with interest, okay? That's a loan, okay? In other words, if you get a loan from the bank, you're saying, okay, bank, you give me the money, and I'm going to contractually bind myself to pay that back to you, okay? And if I don't, there's going to be negative consequences, all right? All right, and that's all spelled out in the agreement, but you are making an agreement. Now, does that agreement have to be in writing? Well, usually in regards to money, okay, in a bank, in a business, yes. However, if it's a verbal agreement between two individuals, okay, that might not be the case. You might not have it in writing, all right? Again, each transaction might be different, but usually if it's coming from a bank or a formal business or a formal institution, okay, it'll be in writing in some way, shape, or form, or have an agreement attached with it, all right? So loans, you're going to have to pay back, and usually if you have a loan, you're going to pay back a rate, okay? I hope that makes sense. All right, next thing we got to worry about. Credit and loans. All right, here we go. The word credit is kind of just thrown around out there, all right? Because you might hear, well, I'm going to give you credit for this, all right? Or if you turn in this extra credit assignment in class, you will receive extra credit towards your grade, all right? So let's look at what credit in regards to loans go, okay? Or loans can be referred to. It's the amount, the total amount in dollars, in the U.S. dollar, right? Especially here in America. If you're in China, it's the whatever the Chinese rate is, or in the yen, or the whatever, okay? or the Deutschmark or the euro or whatever the current currency is, all right? It's the amount obtained for goods or services before any payments are made, all right? So you're getting a credit for a loan, all right? And the loan is saying, okay, well, let's just take a credit card, all right? So if you get your offer for your first credit card and they're saying, we're going to give you $1,000 unsecured loan to use on your credit card, okay? Credit is based off of trust that payments will be made in the future. Now, if you're 18 and getting those credit card offers for the first time, understand that those interest rates are very high because they don't know if you're going to pay back your loans or not, right? And we'll talk about that with history, okay? So let's say you get that $1,000 loan, okay, and that credit card. That credit card says, hey, I have a $1,000 loan from this banking institution. You could use up to $1,000. Does that mean you have to use the whole $1,000? No, you only use it as you see fit. Now, if you want to go out there and buy the latest PlayStation 5 and 8 games to go along with it, you're going to have to pay that back, right? And you're going to have to pay that back with interest, all right? So, again, credit in regards to a loan, right, is the amount obtained for goods or services before payments are made. You're getting the credit for it. You're not making any payments yet. We're giving you credit for it. Credit is based off of trust that payments will be made in the future, all right? Now, how big can those credit cards be? Well, that depends on your history, all right? And depends on what you've done in the past, okay? And we're going to talk about credit history a little bit later on in another unit, and we're going to talk about how using credit cards may not be the best options for certain individuals, okay? But we'll talk about it because credit, we're going to learn, can have negative consequences overall, right? But we're just defining these terms right now, okay? Now, credit history is a record of a borrower's response to loans and debts, all right? And it's typically used before making credit decisions. Now, those 18-year-old credit cards that you'll get when you turn 18 and giving you unsecured loans, all right, they're just saying, hey, you turned 18, you want to establish a credit here, have this credit card, we're going to give you $500, we're going to give you $1,000, and you just make sure that you pay us back over the regular term, and this is a good chance for you to establish your credit history, right? And you'll find out that the rates on those are really, really, really high, like almost illegally high, okay? So, credit history is a record of borrower's response to debts and loans. In other words, if you're given a credit of $3,000 and you only borrow $500, right, and you pay that back right away, that's going to say, hey, you handle credit responsibly, okay? If you borrow $1,000 and you have a total of $5,000 to use, all right, and you pay that back quickly, that says you handle that responsibly. However, if you borrow $500 and you're not paying on time, okay, or you're constantly late on your payments, right, and it's constantly showing up in late charges, that means that you're not doing your part in meeting the agreements, all right? If you're making, well, what if, Mr. C, what if I make one payment one month and the next month I can't make it, but the next month I make 2 payments? Well, that shows up as a ding against your credit. It goes a mark against your credit score, okay, and that lowers your credit score. What happens when you lower your credit score? Well, we'll talk about that in the history, right? That means that you're going to have to pay more in the future because you're becoming less and less reliable, all right? All right. Credit history is usually used to make decisions for credit. So even when you're 18, you're not thinking about it, right? What about when you turn 20 or 21 or 22 and you start looking at buying that first newer car, okay? Or maybe when you turn in your 20s and you make enough money, maybe you're thinking about buying a home or a house, okay? That's where it could really, really affect you, okay? All right, so credit in terms of accounting, right? So we got credit loans, giving you credit history, how is your credit, right? And then credit accounting, okay? In the accounting world, okay, credit usually indicates money coming into an account, all right? When you bring money to the bank, okay, and you say, hey, I'd like to deposit this into my account, they're going to do the banking transaction of credit that amount into the bank, all right? So you bring them $500 and say, I'm going to put this in my checking account. Okay, great. We're going to put this as a credit towards your account. Fair enough, all right? Now, usually the transaction is documented on the right-hand column of a log or a register. Okay, that makes sense, all right? And then there's debit, right? Debit usually means that money is being removed on the account. That's why they call them debit cards. If it's issued from a bank and the money's coming from your checking account and you use that card, it's called a debit card. Why? Because that easily debits money from your checking account for that transaction instead of writing a check or coming and getting cash, okay? But it's also the left-hand column of the account, and you'll see that when we do our account balancing a little bit later on in the section after the next one, all right? All right, very good. So credit means money coming in. Debit means coming out. So 3 terms for a credit again, all right? And so there we go. Next thing, a deposit, all right? Usually a deposit is the amount of money placed into an account, okay? You're going to the bank account or you're pulling up the drive-thru. I want to deposit into my account, right? I want to deposit this into my account. That means they're going to credit that towards your account, right? That check or that money or that cash, whatever. It could also mean the amount of money used for the first installment or pledge on a loan. All right, we're going to give you a home loan or a car loan, but you're going to have to pay us a $1,000 deposit. No, that's fine, okay? You put that money down, and then they give you the loan for that. That's fine, okay? A withdrawal means, to deposit can also mean a verb for storing or entrusting something with someone for safekeep. I like to check my deposit box. My deposit box at the bank means that little box that you have safe items in, okay, that's kept in the vault at the bank, okay? So it's 2 nouns and a verb for deposit. Know the definitions there, okay? Then there's withdraw. Withdraw means to remove or take away something. So when you go to the bank and say, I'd like to take money out of my account, you're making a withdrawal, okay? Now, withdrawal is the amount of money being withdrawn from the account. How much would you like to make out of your account? How much would you like to take out of your account? $100. Well, then you're going to withdraw $100. That's a $100 withdrawal, okay? I hope that makes sense, all right? Mr. C's accent, weird. I get it. Okay, there you go. All right, next slide. Banking and checking. We're going to look at some basic checking accounts and other accounts here. All right, and we're going to do a brief overview, right? There are many types of accounts that are available, and each bank is different, okay? Each financial institution is different. You're going to have to make decisions based off your own. Now, your first banking account or checking account will more than likely be at your parents' bank, okay? Why is that? Well, because they've already established trust there, and maybe they have a little bit of a cushion they could set aside for you if something goes wrong and you're not managing your money right, okay? And that's fine, okay? And you might want to venture off after you turn of a certain age, right? So it's good to know what is out there as far as the checking world is concerned, right? All right, so many types of checking accounts may be available. There could be interest-bearing. There could be non-interest-bearing. Interest-bearing means that they are giving you money or they're giving you yield for keeping your cash there. Non-interest-bearing means you don't get any cash for keeping your money there, right? There could be consumer accounts, senior accounts, small business accounts, personal accounts, spending accounts, monthly checking accounts. You get the idea. There's all different sorts of accounts. Some offer no maintenance fees, okay, with daily balance minimums. They're saying, okay, if you keep $500 in here, we're not going to charge your account. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's great. Some say 0 maintenance fees with the balance. That's fine. Okay, as long as you keep money in the account. Some offer no maintenance fees with direct deposit. Direct deposit means that your place of employment directly puts your money into the account so you don't have to go there on payday to make sure your check is deposited. That's fine. Okay, you can do that electronically. It's trustworthy. I've been doing that for years. Okay, some offer no maintenance fees at all. Again, each bank is different. Some banking and checking allows you to do basic check writing. I mean, that's the purpose of having them, right? So you can write checks. We're going to learn how to write checks in the next unit. And then some might even give you a Visa or MasterCard as a debit or ATM card, right? It'll have the Visa or MasterCard logo. And then every time you use that card at a place to buy something, it'll debit or take out that money from your account for you. That's why they call them a debit card. Mr. C, why do they call them a credit card? We'll talk about that later, all right? All right, so again, basic savings. You can have a savings account. Now, the idea of savings account is not to spend the money as frequently. You're constantly putting that money into the account. I mean, that's why you're doing it, to put money into the account. You're saving it. You're putting away. It's not a spending account. It's a savings account, right? They will pay you to help a savings account. Now, how much they're going to pay you? It's not a lot, okay? It's not a lot. Why? Because the bank will make more money on lending people money than keeping money there, okay? The bank will. Other institutions will make more money by giving you, or you giving them the money, them wisely investing it, okay? But not at the bank, okay? So there you go. So you'll have an APY. We already talked about that, right? Savings accounts are often used as emergency needs and emergency funds, right? Usually there's a minimum deposit required to open. Each bank is different. It could be $1,000, it could be $2,500, it could be $500, right? Some have a minimum balance to maintain or a minimum deposit set for a certain time period. Okay, you got to make sure those time periods are set, or you got to have that minimum balance. Again, each institution is different, all right? They're going to limit you in the amount of withdrawals or how much you can take out of your account, all right? Or there will be charges per withdrawal. Why? Because they want you to keep the money in there. It's a savings account. You're supposed to be putting money away to the side and then maybe use it for a one-time deal or a one-time emergency, or maybe use it towards a down payment towards something, all right? Now, the disadvantage of savings accounts is that the yield tends to be very low, but you do have access to your money quickly, okay? And that's a savings account. Now, there are other accounts that are available, okay? You got what they call CDs and money market accounts, all right? CD stands for Certificate of Deposit, all right? And usually there is a minimum required to open a CD, okay? They are set and established, and they will mature within 90 days or 5 years, depending on the CD that you get, right? Usually the longer, the higher the maturity rate. The maturity rate means you're going to get more yield for putting that money in there, okay? Very good, okay? So you put your money in there and they say, okay, after 1 year, you put $1,000 in with this, right? And you're going to get $1,100 by the time all said and done. Well, that's 10% yield. That's fantastic, right? Are they going to be that high? No, okay? But I'm just using that for example, okay? All right, so the advantage of a CD is that they are low risks. There's not a lot of risk involved there, right? So there's not a chance that you could actually lose money, but there's going to be a slight higher rate than savings accounts, slightly higher, not much higher, but slightly higher. Right? The disadvantage is if you need money in the case of emergency, you can't get to it without paying huge penalties. And often if you put $1,000 in, those penalties could be as high as $200. So you put $1,000 in, you have an emergency, you take the money out, and you're only going to get $800 back. All right? That's just the way it works. All right? There is no, they're not going to take my money. Well, yeah, they will, because you contractually obligated yourself. All right? So there you go. Now, there's also what they call money market accounts. It is a hybrid between a checking account and a savings account. These are really, really awesome, right? Higher maintenance fees if the balances fall below a set limit. That limit could be $1,000. That limit could be $500, right? The advantage is that the annual percentage yield is higher than savings accounts, and you can write checks, right? The disadvantage is that if it falls below a set limit, those maintenance fees are quite large, all right? So that's something to keep in mind there. All right, so that brings us to the end. And look, I only ran 2 minutes over my 20-minute mark. We're doing great. Woohoo! All right, so we got 3 questions. Don't forget the why here. And I believe that we should be able to apply what I just went over, okay? And for number 3, you're going to have to start thinking critically to answer that last question. All right, so if you got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Mr. C in the classroom, and we'll see if we got the answers right here shortly.